Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Human Intelligent Dialogue. As I have committed this year, I wanted to start to speak to senior executives, both in the HR suite and outside of the HR suite. And I have the pleasure today of interviewing Sandra Guerra, who I'll let her introduce herself as to her role and what she's doing and so forth. But based on some of the things I've been following her on LinkedIn and some of the things I've been seeing with her, I think she will add some valuable insight for other HR colleagues, for other people dealing with the human capital issues out there, irrespective of industry, irrespective of business size, irrespective of part of the world at the end of the day. So, Sandra, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the invitation.
So, Sandra, instead of me saying a little bit about you, why don't you give us, I was looking through your background, why don't you share with us, with the audience, a little bit about who Sandra, where did she start, what is she doing, that kind of stuff.
Sure, happy to do that. My career started really learning about people, and it did not start in the traditional HR space. It started in healthcare, growing up, learning to be a nurse. And I did that in the US Army, where I spent a couple years in my training and development there, and then went on to start practicing nursing over the following years from there. And really, that time as a nurse changes your perspective on things, because when you talk about what people need at the core, that is truly where you learn that people need to feel safe, where they need to feel seen, and that they are cared for. And that really is the heart of what we should be doing as leaders. So, starting off my career as a nurse, I ended my nursing practice in psych nursing, which is probably no surprise. And based on all of my posts, mostly are about mental health and well-being, and something to that effect. If it's not talking about organizational change or veterans or anything of that nature. So when I think about the things that have led me to this place, it's been a series of choices that have emerged based on what I found my love to be, right? And as I learned more and more of what it is that I loved, I would start pursuing avenues in that direction. So from nursing, I went into learning and development. And from there, I went into organizational development, and then HR strategy, then business partnering, and so forth. So at this point in my juncture in my career, I am the head of HR for Siemens Energy. This is 4 years now in the energy space. As I mentioned, I was in healthcare. I also did a stint in hospitality, which was a different perspective into caring for people, really caring for the spirit, and ensuring people are enjoying life and experiencing life. So that was a very, very meaningful and impactful time in my life too. I then moved into aerospace, and from aerospace, I came here. And so all of those things are a buildup of what I call my current practice, and really evolves around people. It evolves around organizational change, how to really help organizations shift when they need to shift, and how to do so quickly. And that's what I've been spending my career doing.
Cool. Thank you so much. It's interesting as you were talking. It's funny how sometimes our lives are parallel and we don't realize it with the people we're talking. Because I wanted to be a medical doctor all my life. And growing up in New York and going to Catholic school, that's what I got into, and even moved to Puerto Rico and got into pre-med school, or pre-med, I should say, in college. And then I dropped out and joined the Air Force. So, you in the Army, I was in the Air Force. And then since then, once I got into the service, I promised my grandmother I'll get a degree, and I did, but I got it in psychology, not I didn't continue medicine. And I changed careers and so forth. And since then, I've been working similar to you, helping leaders help themselves. And what I
Mhm.
have philosophized and considered is, what, as much as I was going to get into the medical field, like you were a nurse, I've been in a corporate setting And I've seen more sickness, unfortunately, sometimes in the workplace that you really don't see. It's not like in a hospital
Right.
where you know somebody's sick. This is things that are going on. So it's kind of interesting that our paths kind of went along that way. So thank you for sharing that and thank you for that journey. So let me ask you now at this, for the last several years you've been in this role, and even before that you had a similar somewhat of a similar
Mhm.
role. Bless you. Let me ask you, what are some of the trends you're seeing that, from a human capital perspective, that's impacting organizations and how so?
Well, there's some trends that are impacting everybody at the same time. And then there are other situations that it really depends on what industry you sit in and how the market has impacted what is happening in the organization. And fortunately, being in energy, we're in hyper growth mode. And a lot of that has to do with AI and technology and how that is evolving the way we work, the way we live. Actually, every single thing that you think of can touches AI, from the car that you drive to your doorbell to the lights that can be triggered by your phone. All of these technologies are changing the way that we live, the way we think, the way we interact. All of those things are cumulative, and they impact our market. They impact, our supply and demand, right, for different products, for microchips, for energy, essentially. So when you see that all of these things are happening, that's not strange to all companies, right? That's consistent because it's happening to all of us at the same time. And when you are in hyper growth mode, the challenge that happens because of this is that the systems and processes and the tools that you once had no longer fit. They were built for something else. They were built for smaller. And now you are trying to do different things with it. And you're trying to increase its capability. And you're trying to do it faster and more efficiently. And all of these things start to add up. So again, all of them are similar. This is a trend everywhere. It in every conference I've sat in this past year and a half, AI has been the number one focus, and workforce development has been the number one focus. And I say number one because they're both competing for each other. The technology and people are competing at the same time. As our need for technology grows, so too does our need for people. And that sounds a bit contrary to what most people would think, that AI should be decreasing the need for people. That was, I believe, the big scare. But I'm not seeing that. What I'm seeing is that there needs to be an evolution in how we leverage the talent in business. It doesn't mean that we don't need them anymore. It means that we need to use those people differently. And that's what the conversations I'm seeing more frequently, at roundtables, at, like I said, meetings, group meetings, professional organizational meetings, all of these scenarios, and even these workshops that pop up. You'll see about 1 million of them hit your inbox, and they're all on the same topic. So this is something that we're not going to be able to avoid, and we're going to have to put our arms around it and try to figure out how to go with the flow.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because just yesterday I was speaking at a conference about AI and leadership, and next week I'm speaking about in the era of AI, you need HI, human intelligence. And as I tell people, we've seen this movie before. When the PC came out, which now seems like 100 years ago, it was last century, it eliminated almost 4 million jobs, but it created almost 20. And now AI is, depending on what you read, is expected to eliminate 90 million jobs, create 170. The
Mm-hmm.
problem I'm seeing, to your point, sometimes, and so they're both important. The issue I'm seeing sometimes, some companies will jump out with an AI strategy without thinking about the human capital strategy. And an example of that is IBM laid off 8,000 employees because of AI, only to have to rehire 8,000 employees because of AI. So they didn't think about it all holistically. So thanks for sharing that. So let me ask you this. Now, as you mentioned, we've got these two things kind of at the same time. They're both number one. They're both important. What solutions or strategies are you seeing that are making a difference, either in your space or around as you speak to different organizations and in conferences?
Oh, that's such a big question. What's making a difference is our openness to adopting AI in the workspace. There's much more to just bringing in a technology than just learning how to use it and finding people. If you think back to the time when data mining, when data analytics became the new it thing, uh, there were only a few people that you would hire to do those things. You didn't need 50 million data analysts, right? You have them. They're a small niche group. You need them. They got paid very, very well because they could pull out what we needed. What we're seeing different now is that everyone needs to be familiar with AI in some way or shape or form, right? And our philosophy right now is that we should be hiring everyone with AI skills, not hoping to later eventually infuse them. We want to start hiring grads with AI skill sets. We want to start making sure that as we're hiring in more seasoned talent, how experienced have they been with AI and their openness to adopt this way of working. So those things have changed. And I think even the way that we look at work has changed. For example, you could have spent a couple weeks doing a deep dive analysis on data and preparing for an executive leadership team on all your findings based on whatever it is that you're researching. And you're going through the data and you're double checking and you're putting forth recommendations. And then at the end, you have this polished deck, and it probably may have even taken longer than that because then they looked at it and they say, go back and fix this, and you reiterate and you do this and you go through the dance. Now you're talking, you can take that same amount of data and within a half hour get an initial calculation before you have to validate. Now you're spending a small core part of your time validating information and then putting in key recommendations for the business to accept. That whole process has cut from weeks of work down to hours of work. That and here's the other thing that I think is quite fascinating. There's pride in that. There's pride in the development of that piece of in that body of work because it becomes a signature piece of who you are as you're going through your career. And I know you understand what I'm saying about that, right? So as you start having these pieces of work and now you're churning them out, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them in the time that it would have taken, you know, to do one, it is a big change. And all the other piece of change on that is the way the business is open to reading it and seeing it. There's still, I think, a cultural topic that we haven't talked about with AI is that there is no shame in it. And there, because, oh, you needed to use AI? Well, no, I didn't need to, but I wanted to get some of this stuff done. I've even experienced it myself where you've turned in a body of work. Did you think this or did AI think this? No, I gave AI what I needed. I told it what to think, how to think, and I asked it to structure it for me. And this is the output. You needed me to be able to put that in there. And here's the output. And I validated it and I believe and stand behind it, right? So there's still something there. I don't know if anybody else has experienced it, but I myself have, and I've seen it. And I wonder when we're going to start talking more about that. But what's helped is the openness to adoption.
Yeah, and I think one of the pieces of here's the contradiction. One of the pieces of it is to your point. What used to take you hours or days, now you can do it maybe in an hour, or at least get
Right.
80% of it done. The resistance to that is, what's it going to do to my job? And if people start thinking it's going to recalibrate your job, there are certain jobs that will eliminate. I just saw on LinkedIn last week 40 top jobs that may disappear. Um, if they may disappear, I'm speaking to a group of speakers and I'm going to tell them you have job security because that wasn't there on that list. So the human aspect of it is still going to be important. But I think the contradiction of it is, will it impact my job? What I keep telling people, if your job is routine, mundane, and boring, you want it to go away and to a certain extent. So do that. So I think that's going to be an interesting journey that we go through. And you have, as you know, you've done organizational development and been in that space. You have the 10% that jump out and accept whatever it is. You have the 70, 80% that are kind of wondering, and then you have the 10% on the back end that are like fighting tooth and nail type of thing. They still may have AOL or whatever it is, their old line phone, a land phone connected type of thing. So that's going to continue no matter what at the end of the day. But let me ask you this in a bigger context, and I appreciate what you've been sharing. What are you seeing for the future of work? Now, here's some things to consider, and it may be bigger than a bread box, but I'll put them out there. So obviously, we've been talking about AI. There's the whole remote and hybrid. There's the workforce psychology, where people are expecting different things from Sandra and all her executives and the managers at Siemens. There's an aging workforce. There's a growing multicultural workforce behind that. So based on that, where do you see, and you're there to help the strategy, the human capital strategy go forward, particularly in a space where you grow. On one other piece, there's the skill shortage, and you're in a high, fast growth area where you need those skills and you're competing with others for that limited amount of people. So based on that, what I like to call the perfect human capital storm of all of those things happening at the same time, what do you see for the future of work or how you're helping your organization align for that?
I think it's gonna depend industry to industry on where they are in the market in terms of skill gaps and so forth. I think AI can help us with closing some of those skill gaps. In, in terms of structure, programming, there's some things that can create some efficiency there. But when I think of the future of work, I think of you have to learn from your past in order to be prepared for your future, right? So knowing and seeing how we've come through certain types of obstacles, whether it's, like you said, the introduction of the computer and people learning how to use email for the first time, right? Or data analytics becoming a big piece, or we go through COVID. Every one of those scenarios has changed the way we look at life around us. And this really is about psychology. And our preparation for a lot of change tends to stall out because people don't trust, they don't understand, they don't feel good about it. They're resistant because they don't know any different and they don't know how to deal with the emotion behind it. And if we really want to prepare ourselves for the future, and I would say this 10 years from now, like in 10 years, it would probably be the same thing. If you really want to prepare yourself for the future, you need to prepare you have to create the psychological wellness, healthy way of working type of scenario. And I'm not just talking about eating right and exercising. What I'm talking about is creating a space that is safe to communicate, share what people are feeling that works, that doesn't work, be willing to listen, and actually show that people are what they're providing is valuable, and you are taking some of those nuggets and putting them into action. This isn't different from before. So, what I'm trying to say is nothing's really changed from where I sit. Psychology is a key piece of how successful we are in work, and it doesn't matter what era, what generation, what background. If you don't take care of human mental health, you are not going to make it very well. You're going to struggle. people will get through the change, but they'll either do so favorably or unfavorably. They'll lose great people along the way, or they will gain champions for, the organization. So that's the choice that organizations need to make. If you want to be prepared for the future, create the right workplace today.
Yeah, I think, yeah, what I heard you say is what at least I interpreted was the whole psychological safety, because a lot of organizations have as values innovation and creativity. But what they forget is if I'm going to let you be innovative and creative, I have to be willing to let you fail, because there's a 50-50 chance you're going to make a mistake. You're trying something for the first time. But as soon as they say, here are our values, and then you make a mistake and they slap you on the hand, people go, okay, I learned my lesson. Those are just words on somewhere
Mm-hmm.
around the building. It's not really part of the culture.
So, no, it's interesting that you're mentioning that, because a lot of organizational change gets stalled at the top. And the reason behind it is, in order to change, you have to be open to listen, to hear, to create some flexibility in how and what that looks like. Many times as we're growing, there's this fear, they're not going to make the right decisions with money. So let's put some process around and structure and policy behind money and managing money. Then, they're taking advantage. So let's go ahead and create policies so they don't do XYZ. So you start creating this rigidity in the organization. And now people become resentful because you're not really creating the space that shows trust, that shows that management is working together to make the right decisions, to continue teaching the right decisions versus keeping people from being able to make decisions. These are all things that are important when you are looking at, what do I want my future of my organization to look like? And if you want it to be the same as what it is right now, put in more structure, put in more controls. Controls will keep everybody exactly where they're at. When you create a bit more flexibility, that's when people are able to run, move, make decisions. Okay, I see where you're going with that. Yes, let's try that. Okay, let's put it into play, instead of having to have 10 layers of approval just to be able to get that one creative idea off the ground. So that's the other thing that I was seeing. So I'm glad you brought that up, and hopefully that gives some good insight to people.
Good, I appreciate that. As a matter of fact, you remind me of a couple of things. Um, People resist change because they don't like it, they don't understand it, and they don't like the person that's implementing the change because they don't understand it. And plus, we are just neurologically wired to resist the unknown. And so, unless people communicate, you mentioned earlier, the more we change, the more we remain the same. In the Air Force, I was educating sergeants on communication skills. Fast forward to today, I'm still doing that. And yet, there's a book out there that says only 5% of leaders are effective communicators. 5%. So it's interesting how, to your point, the more we change, the more we remain the same. The other piece you mentioned about psychology, I have said in my book, The Boss, Behaviors of Smart Supervisors, irrespective of you're the CEO or the frontline supervisor, there's 5 roles that today's managers need to play. They're a celebrity because the spotlight's on them. There's a quasi-psychologist because they show up with their strengths, weaknesses, and insecurities and their own personal issues and how they interact with those people that have similar issues. Sociologists because of team dynamics, anthropologists because of organizational culture, and a director of an orchestra because just like they have to bring out beautiful music from different instruments and musicians, you as an executive or as a leader have to bring out the best of your people in order to deliver on the products and services that your organization is responsible for at the end of the day. So that's some of the things that I'm tending to see out there. Let me ask you this though, as we begin to close out. What actionable advice are you giving either to managers or providing to managers or to the listeners here or to any employees or even your HR professionals? You have a staff and there's other HR professionals that may tune in and listen here. What actionable advice would you give them?
In terms of change, in terms of preparing for the future, what would
Um, well, and I think they kind of go hand in hand, and that is the whole change and the and preparing for the future too. But just creating that workplace where people
Mm.
feel psychologically safe, where they
Mhm.
don't they enjoy who they're working for, enjoy the organization, enjoy the job they're doing at the end of the
Mhm.
day, because turnover
Mhm.
costs a lot.
Yes, it does. I would say start with your group first. Right? Show what it is to care for your people. Know your people, know what's important to them, and really spend good quality amount of time doing the basics in leadership, making sure you're doing your one-on-ones, making sure you're creating the environment to be able to give and receive feedback, but become so comfortable with your team that you not familiar, not overly familiar is what I mean, but more comfortable so that people there's a trust. When you know your friend and you trust your friend, you can kind of say something and it's received, well, I didn't like that. Well, you're not going to like it, but that's the truth. Well, okay, you can handle it differently when you have established a rapport. So start with your team and model it. In terms of when we think about organizationally, let's go straight to the jugular here. Before you go implementing structures, think about what it is you're trying to accomplish. Will this structure support the vision for the future or potentially impede? And if so, and if there's a trade-off and we must go one way, how are we going to ensure that we mitigate that? How are we going to minimize the potential impacts of maybe one particular organizational structure? Maybe it's process or system. Before you go and put something in, stop and think, who are the users? How are they impacted? Really think about the experience. Sometimes we as organizations feel like one thing is really, really great, but then we haven't thought about it in the entire ecosystem and how it impacts the rest. And the downfall is very detrimental to others. So really making sure that you're always asking, is what I'm doing achieving what I intend? Is it creating too much structure? Is it creating too many challenges? Is it against the culture that we're building here? Or is it actually supporting what exactly we're trying to do? So start first with yourself. Ask yourself those same questions as you're implementing processes, ways, and always be open to hearing when it's not working.
Cool. Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Sandra. Again, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to contribute. And I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for your insights. I'm sure it'll be helpful for others because it gets different perspectives. And that's what I'm looking for is senior HROs or senior executives in HR or senior executives outside of HR that are dealing with these issues on a day-to-day basis as they're trying to achieve whatever deliverables they have to achieve in and try to make work. I don't know if you knew this, but try to make work not the fifth cause of death, which it is. It's been cited in this book, Dying for a Paycheck. So reduce the stress and help people overall just enjoy what they're doing. So thank you, Sandra. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Looking forward to learning more about that book too. I'll definitely take a peek at that one. Thanks and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. We're glad that you stopped by to visit. We're in the business of helping organizations in the growing era of AI become more HI, and that is become more of a human intelligent workplace. And we do that in a variety of ways. We can do speaking engagements. I can come in and speak to you either at executive retreats, at offsites, keynotes, things of that nature, to kind of share with you some of the trends that are taking place and what the implications may be for your organization. Sort of in a way, put a mirror up to your organization and say, these are the things that are happening. Are you ready for them? Are you doing something about it? So that's just one way. Another way we do some work with organizations is through executive coaching, helping from VPs to frontline supervisors, those to soon to be in supervisory, high potential individuals, help them in their development. Also do leadership and team development work. And along with that, we use instruments to help organizations from a consulting perspective help themselves, whether it's the Human Intelligent Workplace Instrument or questionnaire to take a sense of, hey, how are we doing in this space? Also, organizational change readiness questionnaire. Are you ready for the changes? What are you missing based on some of this information? And lastly, we also look at leader behavior effectiveness questionnaires. How well are your leaders doing? How do they assess themselves, and how are the workforce assessing them too, whether it be 360 or others? So we're here to help, particularly in this ongoing changing era that organizations are facing, a time of uncertainty, a time where the workplace or the workforce is expecting different things. So hopefully you'll reach out to us and let us know how we can help you out. You can look at some of our information that we have on our website, some of the various podcasts, some of the articles and videos that I've put out there. And hopefully those will percolate and create some thoughts and reflective moments to think about. Maybe we need to have a discussion with the Human Intelligent Workplace. Thank you very much.